So, wanted to just kind of maybe start with just who you are, and for everyone, kind of what you do at Whitecap. We'll kind of get into a bit of an AI talk after that.
Sounds good. I'm James Wakelin, Director of Business Intelligence at Whitecap. I've been here for almost 12 years. Started the BI team or analytics team when I came over, and have grown into about 30 people in our analytics and data group, and moving from just a straight data ingestion and analytics space to utilizing AI as a tool to accomplish those goals.
Yeah, and so you've been doing analytics this whole time.
Yeah, I have 28 years in analytics, and
Wow, yeah.
and then just this is sort of the forefront of the next wave of what's coming is the AI space.
No, for sure. So you've seen all the iterations of it from the early days of kind of, what was it back then?
Well, business objects was big.
Yeah, okay.
SAP had their own data warehouse BI tool, and then sort of everything in between, Click, View, and all of them just came out of nowhere, and then some of them are gone and some of them are still around. And
yeah. Well, I was just talking to Dave earlier, and congrats on all the growth, first of all, success of Whitecap, and the merger recently.
Yeah, a lot of change. I mean, Whitecap started out at about a 1,400 a day BOE, 16 years ago, and now we're 375,000 and still growing. So it's quite an accomplishment in that 16 years. And the Veren acquisition was a huge part of our growth in the last 12 months, and it's only going to get bigger, and the demand for data getting larger. So.
For sure. Yeah, it was interesting because when we started working together, it was initially about building a warehouse, right? And building kind of workflows around that warehouse. Yeah. But I didn't realize at the time how much data Whitecap actually has access to.
Yeah.
And I found out more today, and also from talking to you. And so I think it kind of helps to frame the conversation about AI, just to know the level of granularity and the volume of data that we're looking at here. So can you speak a bit to that?
Yeah, we were, during our transformation process of our data currently, we move about 1 terabyte of data every month.
Okay.
And that's not our whole set of data. That's only what we can turn into relational databases.
Yeah.
We also have time series data at a microsecond level for our drills, our fracs, and subsurface information that we have to land in a place that we can comprehend that data, and that could double or triple our data every month just for that. So our data is enormous. We have granularity down, like I said, to the microsecond on certain things, and daily on every well and pipe and flow and types of fluids, and so there's just copious amounts of it that we have to handle for the business.
Would you say it's a common volume of data for the industry? Is that kind of how you would expect most oil and gas companies to?
Yes, there's like certain things will always be the same. Like every well that's drilled will have a similar amount of data per well. So larger companies will have larger amounts of data, but it is kind of, there's a steady point where 10 wells is this much, 20 wells is this much, and the growth is fairly, it can get exponential, but it's quite linear, that you expect it to have this much extra data per new drill and stuff like that. So everyone has that amount. Not everyone uses it.
Right.
That's the difference.
Right. Well, and using it can mean lots of things. Again, so actually getting a bit into kind of what your vision is with data and analytics. I think historically a lot of businesses, and I'm curious what your perspective is on that, have seen analytics as a more of a backward-looking function, right? So here's what happened. Let me visualize it. Let me analyze it. See how we did. Less of a kind of forward-looking. Here's how this will look like in the future. Is that consistent? How do you think about the role of data and analytics at at Whitecap, I guess is the broad question.
Well, it started out that we had a ton of data, but no information.
Okay.
So everyone saw data, but they couldn't do anything with it. So analytics initially starts as turning data into information to give something useful to someone who's going to make a decision. And yes, that's backward looking, like how did we do?
Right.
And hoping we can improve on the future.
Right.
As we get into these larger data sets, new tools, we are hoping to implement predictive analytics, where we're predicting what the next thing looks like. And saying, can we measure it against something in the past to get an idea of where this is going? And we need to have access and rapid access to that old data in its rawest form to show us where this one piece could fall into that. And how do we get to the future and say this is going to be good, or we have to make an adjustment. And so we're hoping to have these new tools take a lot of the old data and turn it into predictive analytics.
Yeah, and you seem to be moving quite fast on that.
Well, one of our founding sort of tasks is to give reliable returns to our shareholders. And so that means being a low-cost producer. And IT costs keep growing.
Right.
So we are trying to see what technologies we can leverage now that will set us up for low-cost IT in the future. And not cheap, but efficiently low cost. And say, you know, we're getting value out of something by building on it now than waiting until we have no choice. So, you know, spending a little more money up front over a longer period to get set up properly, and that's the only way we'll keep our costs under control.
Right. So in terms of technology overall, I mean, obviously over the years the role of technology has increased in oil and gas. The role of IT has increased in oil and gas. How, you know, across different industries it kind of progresses at a different pace, right? Obviously tech industries are all tech. All software. Interestingly enough, that's now being eaten the fastest by AI. How does it feel to you in oil and gas? So of course there's the kind of the behemoths of the space, like, you know, Exxon, who have departments for everything and had those for years. But as an industry as a whole, do you feel like IT and data analytics and AI is accelerating?
It's accelerating. We don't have the specialization that the larger companies have. Like they have people who are doing or paid to do these things in-house. Whereas us, although we're large now at 375,000 BOE a day, we're still small comparatively, and we have to rely on specialized tools and then to allow us to get ahead. And analytics is one of those secret sauce pieces that if you do something a bit better in your analysis, you can get ahead faster. So we don't want to build everything internally or have experts in every single thing. We want to have tools that can make experts do better. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
That makes sense. You know, one thing I've heard someone say recently is with AI and with software in general, what you need is to prove something out at a small scale, because scaling is much faster than scaling through growing headcount, right? You can replicate a success much faster.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that?
Well, a POC driven by the business users instead of a requirements document is going to be what changes this space. Where they can citizen code or vibe code a small program that gets them an objective and then can turn around and say, this is what I need on a corporate scale. And because I don't think anyone's ever been really good at defining requirements at the beginning. They say something and then they have to iterate. And then if they see something and then reiterate, and you get scope creep, and the project managers have to manage all that. Whereas when you can have someone spend a day developing with AI coding tools to get them what they need to see, that becomes a living, breathing requirements document. And will allow the teams that have to make those decisions for performance and scalability and data much more aligned with the business user's thoughts.
Well, and we're seeing this across the board. I mean, executives, business users are all creating their own solutions. And then, of course, scaling that and operationalizing that goes to the IT team, right? But the creation of the initial solution is wiring it straight to the brain of the person who needs it.
I call it sort of AI entrepreneurialism, where the business can be the entrepreneur of the product, but don't have to actually execute. They just want to be the consumer. And so they can give their idea, show something, and then have it built properly. In that sense, security, performance, scalability, right?
For sure. It does create an interesting accountability, though, because if you as a business owner created something and handed it over and that got productionized, that should satisfy your needs because it did at a small scale, right?
And there's ownership.
There's ownership.
There's a lot of times where things are driven by IT, but there's no business ownership. But when they drive the car, they take the ownership.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And what we don't want is shadow IT,
right.
where if we can't move fast enough to get these things into production, then they just keep running these small things as hard.
Right.
And then other people build that, and then the performance degrades because we can't stay on top of it. So there's a give and take of taking everyone's hopeful ideas and making them real quickly, but properly.
Yeah, and having a pipeline and a process for it, and all the things that actually make a business function.
And trying not to duplicate,
right.
where 3 business users are essentially managing the same thing, and then there's 3 programs running all the time.
Right.
So.
Although it's hard to prevent with the velocity, but you could always then consolidate and combine. One thing that's kind of happening right now in the industry is there's certainly a big impact on the workforce, right?
Yep.
And it's not just the simplistic view is AI taking people's jobs. I mean certainly there's some of that, but there's some very different things happening. We're seeing executives give up executive titles to kind of combine their whole roles between the executive, the product owner, the programmer, and essentially build the full solution. Kind of to your point, business users becoming also developers, right? Where do you think this is going? Like, what's
Well, AI in everything will change jobs.
Yeah.
They may not necessarily reduce the number, but the job role will change in some form, and people have to adapt. Now, some people will do that better than others, but I don't think AI will reduce all workforces. I think they will just allow people to specialize in other things and become experts in those specializations, and have better tools to be more efficient, and maybe growth of headcount will slow down with AI as opposed to job reductions. So as we grow as a company to whatever number of our targets are in future, we may not have to grow linearly. We might be able to grow much slower because some of these processes will be handled more efficiently, but then the people are doing more productive work with those tool sets.
Another possibility, which I'm curious to get your take on, is there's that pivot moment where exactly this is happening. So there's layoffs, there's changes in jobs, but then because you can accomplish so much more, all businesses start moving faster, and now you need to hire back, but the roles are different. It's not, you no longer hire Salesforce developers. You have a team in-house that created the best CRM for your business, and that team maintains that CRM, right? And keeps developing it, or something along those lines.
And it's inevitable that jobs will change. Like the horse and buggy went out when the car came in, and the guys that made the horse whips, what jobs did they have? But there were other jobs in the factories for them to take on by putting wheels on cars. Like
well, certainly there's more jobs now than back then.
And I think AI will allow there to be different jobs for people to use their not just their brains, but their aptitude.
Yeah.
And it's just I think we need to separate what's an AI job loss and not just a corporate performance job loss that gets lumped in as, oh, we're doing it because AI is reducing the workforce. But it's like, not necessarily, you're just hiding it in that.
Yeah.
The efficiencies of AI will allow you to grow your workforce at a better rate for better jobs.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to reduce the number. It's just going to change them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's so hard to predict. Who knows? Yeah, do you think eventually everything's done by robots? The fracking, the drilling, the everything all the way up to,
pieces
the
of
entire company is...
Pieces of it will be done,
Yeah.
will be roboticized, especially, I believe, the high danger roles where human safety is still an extreme factor. And in drilling, you're moving equipment really fast and things, and there is a huge safety component. I think there will be better safety implements and robots that'll handle those types of things, because then you're not worrying about loss of life or limb or things. But there's still always going to be a component on going out to a physical site and saying, gee, we picked that as the drill site, but it's so uneven.
Right.
It makes sense to shift it 2 or 3 meters, which doesn't change everything. But you're not going to get rid of all the humanity, I don't think.
Okay.
But a lot of things will be roboticized to make it more efficient and safer, for sure.
Yeah, and certainly physical robotics is not as far along in its own journey as the software, the LLMs. So it's really hard to know at this point. Yeah.
But it will change.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's robots in auto manufacturing, welding, and things like that now, and painting. They're much more
surgery.
It's very specific tasks in the same spot. I mean, things that don't move as much can be roboticized much more easily.
Yeah, where most of the objects are
stationary. The assembly line moves them to that location, and it knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, then you have Boston Dynamics, right? So those robots are pretty cool. They're like 200, 300K each, I think, something like that.
And as long as they last for 30 years and don't need a ton of maintenance, maybe that's great. It's going to change. It's just I'm hoping. I have children. I don't. They need jobs too.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I guess it's really hard to predict the future at this point. But I think at least with the current transformation that the software world is going through, we will see some new emergence of what the new world looks like, probably within a year or two, I think, right? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was asked late last year where I thought AI would take analytics in the next 3 to 5 years. And I said it would change the game quite a bit by being able to produce analytics on the fly.
Yeah.
And then Claude released their latest version late last year, and I think that's within a year. So things are going to move much faster than we anticipate. And it's the response to that change that will determine the success. Are you willing to embrace what's good in that and move forward, or are you going to try to block it and stay behind and then have everyone else doing other things?
I think blocking it is no longer. It's not a real option anymore.
It's not, but people still will.
Yeah,
I think
that's a fair point. Yeah, change management is one of the big things we're actually running into across the industry. We work with critical infrastructure, right? We don't work with tech companies whose entire mandate is build another AI product.
Yeah.
And so change management is something that comes up a lot. Those are industries that they are fine. It's interesting because the business is fine. It's profitable. So the imperative to adopt AI comes from strategic thinking. It doesn't come from immediate market pressure. And
it's long-term growth,
yeah,
I think. And we also have to realize we're still at the infancy of AI.
Yeah.
Certain people trust it implicitly without checking on its results, and that can lead to just as many problems as not using it. So I think starting to grow with it and understand its capability, but what its output is doing, and initially validating that output. You know, if it's repetitive enough that you can say, okay, after the first 20 or 200 or whatever number, you're satisfied that it's coming up with a consistent answer, then you can start trusting that component. But I think we can't blindly just believe the answer an LLM
Everything.
gives
Yeah.
and think that's going to solve all our problems. Like we have to, and that's the change management part. Like where's the oversight to start with?
Right.
I think. Yeah.
Do you think the roles of many employees, many people would shift from doing the work themselves to kind of shepherding the AI and observing it, prompting it, you know?
I think shaping it, yeah. There's
Yeah.
going to be the experts in those fields will be like, okay, I see what you did here. Here's what's missing,
Right.
and
Keep going.
keep going with this prompt, and then keep reevaluating. And sometimes each situation's unique, and the prompt that works or the idea that worked the last 20 times needs work this time, and this
Yeah.
is the exception, and someone still needs to review it to make sure that those exceptions are caught. It's going to change roles, 100%. But I think people still need to see the results and verify for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that need will reduce over time and maybe get eliminated entirely in some areas. But what's kind of the event horizon there is hard to know. Somewhat related question. So one kind of conversation that seems to be happening now is there's actually people are having different experiences with AI, and it's because not everyone's getting exposure to the same AI, really. So there's the free ChatGPTs of the world, right? You can sign up and can play around with it, and it can give you a recipe or play the role of an encyclopedia, right? Then there's kind of the enterprise, versions of the same types of chat with an AI types of use cases, like Azure Copilot is an example. And then there's tools like Claude Code, Codex, Shakudo has Kaji now, which is, maybe you tell me, it's new to you guys, but how do you see those as different types of AI, or is it all just part of the same thing?
Well, it's not the same. They're all different and unique, and what people's use case for them are unique. Like, if someone only needs the recipe, they don't need to ask Claude to code the recipe.
Sure.
So a lot of this will be use case specific, but they're taught differently. Their algorithms work differently. Their models work differently, and so how do you have a confidence in the results, and how do you test that against each tool? We're inundated with all these tools and like Grok and all this. Well, which one do you trust?
Right.
And is it I trust one for a certain circumstance versus the other? And how do we test that? And how do we know? Or do we all go in and Sam Altman rules our lives from afar and we all just pick ChatGPT? They're all different because they were built for a different purpose to begin with. But as they sort of morph together into the same kind of result, we do have to keep testing against them for confidence in accuracy and stuff.
I guess yes, to your point, I agree. And to your point, there's this difference in accountability, where if you go and you prompt ChatGPT for something and you get an answer, but the tool doesn't make tool calls.
No.
It gives you the recipe. Here, go do this. That's an easier job compared to, let's say, going in and doing the work yourself, which is what Codex, Claude Code, OpenClaw, and Kaji do. And so the accountability happens at a different point in time, right? So what's interesting is it's the same LLM that's behind all of this. So what I'm wondering is, do you kind of see the industry slowly all moving towards having the AI do things? Or are there parts of it which will always kind of stay just as an encyclopedic type of chat where...
I think the AI companies would love them to be doing all the work.
Yeah.
Because they could charge for it, right?
Sure.
Again, like you said, it's hard to predict the future.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Yeah.
But then I still grew up when telephones were on the wall,
Right.
right? Like
Same as me.
So
Yeah.
so I couldn't have seen the computer in a phone
Yeah.
25 years ago or 27 years ago. So I think people will still
Kids call these banana phones. now.
banana phones.
Yeah.
I, there'll always be a segment of the population that just wants it to be an information provider,
Yeah.
not a doer. But there's going to be people who want it to do things. And so it'll be interesting to see who wins on that.
Yeah, ultimately, I think the market
Yeah.
determines that, and so
If the revenue is to be made by paying someone else to have AI do everything, then it'll win.
yeah,
If it isn't capable of doing everything without prompting and
Yeah.
people are still involved, then that model will
right,
win.
makes sense.
It maybe certain industries will be impacted fully and others will be not the same, right? Like,
Yeah, maybe a very quick detour, and I haven't really asked others that we've kind of done this with, but just curious your thoughts, because as technologists, I guess people who kind of work with AI now, there's all sorts of ethical questions to start to come up. I mean, of course, everything related to the workforce is kind of the obvious one. But there's the Anthropic kind of debate with the U.S. government around the military. There's, Boston Dynamics wants the robots to be used only in certain ways. Do you think that will persist, or? And if it's too political, you don't
no,
have to.
I mean, politics is always going to play in this because if the government was to take control of the LLM and program it the way it wants it to be done, it will be a huge political problem, right? What the founders of these things wanted it to do versus what the outcome is changes as different people come on board. You say, we never intended this to be used in a way that lied to people. But I mean, how many of us have used an LLM and we got confirmation bias on the answer? It's assuming this is what you want to hear, but it's not actually the truth or not actually what you were looking for. It just made you feel like it was giving you that answer. We can't be lulled into that sense of security that it's always going to be doing what's best for us. When it can be programmed to be doing what's best for someone else.
Well, and speaking of governments taking control, a lot of the best open source LLMs come from China now.
Yeah.
And they're trained in China, and so there's a bit of a kind of concern there because who knows, it can be used as a weapon as well.
Yeah, unless you can see underneath the hood and understand what's going on, then there's always going to be that fear that it came from someone who's not nice to us. Right. And
so we actually have quite a few of our customers, again, because of the nature of the industries we're working with, that require us to provide models like Nemotron and Gemma that are made in the US as opposed to GLM, which is kind of a Chinese model. It's interesting, and one thought I had was, well, you get the models delivered as weights, right? It's just parameters.
Yeah.
You don't know if the brain of the model is programmed to respond to a certain code word and start behaving differently. And so those are kind of all things that come to mind.
Unless you build the LLM yourself, you have no idea what's underneath it.
That's right.
And who wants to do that?
Anyway, enough of that very serious stuff.
It's true. It's going to be out there. We're an on-prem company because we didn't want our data exposed to laws that we had no control over. Right?
That makes sense.
Put it in the cloud, and it may be subject to a different country's legal framework and exposure to being opened at any time. And so the company made a decision to keep as much on-prem because then we had control over where that information ended up. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. That was just a decision that we made to secure our own data. So,
and it's a decision that more and more businesses make. I mean, if AI goes in the direction of becoming a big part of the brain of your business, not just the assistant, but actually some of the decision making, some of the actioning, you definitely don't want, to your point, whether it's Sam Altman or someone else, you don't want someone external to be just in full control of your business.
Yeah.
That is a kind of a very natural preference, and so that I think the industry is definitely moving in that direction. Hybrid infrastructure, diversification of AI, which I know we've been talking about as well.
Well, like the promise of these enterprise agreements with the frontier LLMs, where you're like, well, we won't train on your data.
Right.
Well, that's today. What happens if someone buys you and tomorrow they don't care? Like, do you really have control over whether or not they end up with your data?
Right.
So you're hoping that those are going to be, or you say, do I need my open source on-prem and I know exactly where?
So the open source on-prem is probably the safest.
Mm-hmm.
You got to balance it with the performance. I think recently the open source, it's like a pendulum. It keeps kind of going back and forth. The open source models now are actually catching up, which is great. But just to your earlier point, when we sign a no training agreement with a provider like Anthropic, it also comes with, or we insist on it coming with a no data retention.
Right.
So that the data is not stored and not trained on. If someone changes that in the future and we've decided to withdraw, there's nothing to kind of train on that's left. Yeah.
But do they still have it?
No, they shouldn't.
They shouldn't.
Yeah, they shouldn't. Yeah, you're right. We are relying at the end of the day on them following contractual.
And it's what scares people away from AI still.
Yeah.
So if we're aware of the risks and the potential that some of this stuff isn't going to be held to the standard that we hope, but we prepare for that, then maybe we can find the point where we're going to use those public ones or enterprise ones for things that need the technology they've released.
Yeah.
And then rely on sort of the on-prem LLMs that may be a version or two behind for the majority of the questions you ask, because it's probably good enough.
Yeah.
And then you deal with that on a
Right.
thing in it. And some of it is fear and not knowing, or
Right.
thinking, companies haven't been good in the past and they're not going to be good in the future. Not necessarily AI companies, just companies in general have taken advantage of things that they probably shouldn't have. And so prepare for it and just put your risk tolerance in and understand what could happen and be okay with it, or don't use it.
Right.
Whichever, right? Those are the options.
So James, thanks. Good. Love the chat. Maybe let's switch gears a bit. Talk about infrastructure. So we've been talking a lot about AI, the future, kind of what AI can do, and how it might change us. But how do you see now? Back to kind of the ground. How do you see the data infrastructure, which everyone's familiar with? Everyone has been doing something in those areas, and AI coming together, right, over the next year, 6 months, 1 week, whatever the velocity is. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to impact a lot. I think that where you have multiple resources to stage data, to cleanse data, to just prepare it for business use, will be changed a lot within AI. It'll help minimize the resources needed by doing things in one step, as opposed to separating them out by servers or storage areas, right? Like, if it can see data that's coming in, it looks consistent, it'll bypass pieces of the infrastructure that aren't needed anymore. It could also stop and highlight data deficiencies, I think, much faster, where it's like something is wrong with this data because it's out of whack for what we've seen come in, and it can have years of data elements that it can rely upon, right? So it can highlight inefficient data or bad data much faster than we will ever be able to do. So it's going to change the processing of data, the transformations of it and stuff.
One thing you mentioned earlier, which I thought it's a great practical use, and it's a problem for not just oil and gas, but for so many industries. You get data from multiple vendors.
Yeah.
It kind of looks similar, but manually trying to reconcile it is
absolutely, where different vendors have different names for the same piece of data overall. AI will step in and be like, those two columns match. I don't need to create a second or third column to put data into where that is the exact same thing through analysis of the data. And determining whether there was a secret sauce of data that one vendor put in and they realized where it came from and they could actually extrapolate other vendor data to fit into that column. It's going to allow for a lot of stabilization of data across systems so it can be analyzed in the same way. It'll create calculations that exist in one vendor's software and not another and add them, be able to populate that field where someone hasn't yet.
Right.
And so I think it's going to help cleanse it and keep it in the same framework that we need it to be turned into information so the business knows what they're getting. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. And just thinking about data, people talk about thinking about data. AI can think about data.
Yep.
And then today, people can think about the results of that process, right?
I think it really big impact will be the time to impact on the business decisions from it. Like, where if it takes us a week to fix something because we have to see the problem and do it, AI will change that into less than a day.
Yeah.
And so then the business impact is much more immediate and they can make better decisions on more complete data quicker than waiting for, say, a developer to build something over 6 months or a data cleanse program to be built in 3 weeks. It'll drive the impact for the business much quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at Shakudo, we operate the entire business through AI. I mean, that's probably not as much of a surprise, but all the analysis for our board decks, the prep for that, I saw Christine yesterday was prompting Kaji, who basically make me a board deck and it just goes and does it. So.
And I think that's where we can go with certain tasks, is it takes away that time investment in creating these things where you can just give it the information and it already knows the format you want it in and the audience you're delivering to, and will build it the way you would speak.
Yeah.
Like it can analyze your own writing and create it in your voice as opposed to a robotic voice, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to change that aspect of things.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's talk about your vision for the future a bit. How do you see, what do you want to happen at Whitecap over the next couple of years?
I truly believe custom analytics will be driven by AI, where we're not reliant upon functionality that exists in current analytic programs.
Yeah.
Where if we come up with an idea for a new analytic, it can be created on the fly and added to the arsenal of what people are analyzing. And so I truly believe in the next 2 years that we'll be developing a lot more custom and repetitive analytics that have functionality that doesn't exist today. And that's where the power of this within the analytics space will really shine.
So your goal, just to make sure I'm understanding it, your goal is any business user out there at Whitecap, out of the 1,000 or so total employees, can have a question in mind and they can get a data-driven answer within a reasonable time frame, entirely autonomously.
I believe that is where the analytics space will go. Not saying that it'll eliminate the need for specific corporate reports that are curated for everybody, but if there's a specific question that needs to be asked that we don't have functionality or the analytic built already, it can be done much more real time, within an hour or less than waiting for a team to get to it or a product to deliver that functionality. It's the independent customization by the individual will really take off from an analytic perspective. So we need to make sure our data is clean and in the right spot and the right metadata and the right information that the AI agents can use to create those things and give the right answer. So there's still a lot on our plate. It's just,
for sure. There's more work for IT.
Again, the jobs are changing. We may not create all the analytics anymore, but we need to make sure the data's proper.
And the infrastructure.
And the infrastructure. Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about Shakudo to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Would love to hear kind of your perspective on, our partnership, just how you see Shakudo fitting into all that whole story.
Well, we started out with Shakudo about a year and a half ago, and as a way to build a foundational data layer for our analytics. We weren't totally contemplating AI at that point, but we knew we needed a solid foundation for our data, and Shakudo just opened up so many tools that would allow us to do that. And then as we went through our business combination and doubled in size, that data foundation was in good position but needed to double. And then, well, how do we double if we have new employees that we don't know all the mix of each technology? Well, what happened? The AI model started coming in and started helping us combine this stuff without having to delay. And then you see the Shakudo Kaji AI, and you're like, the tool has more help. The tool does more. And I think what started out as the foundational layer, which we needed, it will turn into really an advanced AI tool for our business.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
We are too. Yeah.
Great, James. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate the partnership.
Thank you for coming, and keep building great tools so that we can keep growing together.
Thank you, James.
Perfect.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.